I woke up to a text that shattered my world in 4 seconds. My husband had divorced me by message, drained our joint account, and was moving to Florida with his 21-year-old girlfriend. The morning I received that message, I was sitting in our Boston apartment, coffee in hand, thinking it would be just another ordinary Tuesday. I had no idea that my entire life was about to change forever, and that the calm response I sent back would be the beginning of something he would never see coming. My name is Sarah, and I'm 38 years old. I've lived in Boston my entire life, growing up in a middle-class family in Dorchester, before working my way through college and building what I thought was a solid life. For 12 years, I was married to Marcus, a man I met at a networking event when I was 26. He was charming, ambitious, and seemed to have his life together. He worked in tech sales, always talking about the next big deal, the next promotion, the next level of success we would achieve together. I worked as a financial analyst for a mid-sized investment firm downtown, and I was good at my job. Really good. I understood numbers, patterns, and risk assessment in ways that made me invaluable to my company. But Marcus never really appreciated that side of me. To him, I was just his wife who worked in finance, not someone whose skills and intelligence deserved recognition. Our marriage had been rocky for the past 2 years. I won't lie about that. Marcus had become distant, constantly on his phone, taking calls in the other room, coming home later and later from work. I suspected something was wrong, but every time I tried to talk to him about it, he would brush me off, saying I was being paranoid or that work was just stressful. I believed him, or maybe I just wanted to believe him, because the alternative was too painful to consider. We had built a life together, owned a beautiful apartment in Back Bay, had friends, routines, plans for the future. Or at least, I thought we did. That Tuesday morning in late September, the weather in Boston was crisp and cool, the kind of autumn morning that makes you grateful to live in New England. The leaves were just starting to turn, painting the city in shades of orange and gold. I had taken the day off work to catch up on some personal errands, maybe treat myself to a nice lunch, enjoy the beautiful weather. I was sitting on our balcony, watching the city wake up below me, when my phone buzzed. I assumed it was a work email or maybe a message from one of my friends. Instead, what I saw made my blood run cold. The message was from Marcus, sent at 6:30 in the morning. It read exactly this, and I will never forget these words. Sarah, I'm leaving you. I've met someone else. Her name is Brittany and she's 21. We're in love and I'm moving to Florida with her today. I've already emptied our joint savings account because honestly, I deserve it more than you. I've been carrying this relationship for years while you just coasted along. Good luck with your boring life, haha. I stared at that message for what felt like an eternity, reading it over and over again, trying to make sense of the words. My husband of 12 years had just ended our marriage via text message, insulted me, stolen our money, and added a mocking, ha ha, at the end like this was all some kind of joke. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. The coffee cup in my other hand felt impossibly heavy. For a moment I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what was happening. Then, something inside me shifted. Instead of breaking down, instead of calling him and screaming or begging or demanding answers, I felt this strange, icy calm wash over me. Maybe it was shock. Or maybe it was years of being underestimated, finally reaching a breaking point. I took a deep breath, set down my coffee, and typed out a response that would haunt Marcus for the rest of his life. All I wrote was, "Good luck." If you're listening to this story and finding yourself drawn into what happened next, please take a moment to click that subscribe button. This channel is working hard to reach 1,000 subscribers, and your support means everything. It's easy, just hit the red subscribe button below this video, and you'll be helping this community grow. Trust me, you'll want to follow along for what comes next in this story. After I sent that reply, I sat there for a few minutes, just breathing, trying to organize my thoughts. Marcus had emptied our joint savings account. That account had about $47,000 in it, money we had saved together over the years for a down payment on a house, for emergencies, for our future. He had taken it all. The violation of that, the betrayal, was almost worse than the affair itself. But here's what Marcus didn't know. What he had never bothered to learn or pay attention to during our entire marriage. I was the one who actually managed our finances. I was the financial analyst. I was the one who understood how money worked. Yes, Marcus had emptied our joint savings account. But what he didn't realize was that I had 3 separate accounts he knew nothing about. Over the years, especially during the last 2 when I sensed something was wrong, I had been quietly moving money into private accounts in my name only. Call it intuition, call it professional paranoia, but something had told me to protect myself. I had one savings account with $68,000 in it. I had another investment account with stocks and bonds worth about $95,000. And I had a retirement account that Marcus had never paid attention to, now worth close to $230,000. In total, while Marcus thought he was leaving me broke with his $47,000 theft, I actually had nearly $400,000 in assets he didn't know existed. But I didn't stop there. I immediately called my bank and reported the unauthorized withdrawal from our joint account. Since we were still legally married, and he had taken the entire amount without my consent, I filed a report. Then I called my lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, who I had worked with on some corporate matters. I explained the situation, forwarded her the text message, and asked her what my options were. Patricia was furious on my behalf. She told me that what Marcus had done was not only grounds for divorce, but potentially constituted financial abuse and theft. She advised me to freeze all joint credit cards immediately, which I did. She also told me to document everything, every asset, every account, every piece of property we owned together. Over the next few hours, I worked with the precision and focus that made me excellent at my job. I gathered bank statements, mortgage documents, credit card records, investment portfolios. I photographed everything in our apartment, every piece of furniture, every appliance, every item of value. I changed all my passwords, secured my personal accounts, and made sure Marcus had no access to anything that was solely mine. Then I did something that Marcus, in his arrogance, never anticipated. I called his employer. You see, Marcus worked for a tech company that had very strict policies about employee conduct and ethics. I didn't call to get him fired or to be vindictive. I called because I knew that the $47,000 he had taken included a bonus I had received from my company just 2 months earlier. Money that was legally mine, not marital property, because it was clearly designated as my individual compensation. I explained to his HR department that my husband had stolen money from me and that I was pursuing legal action. I was calm, professional, factual. I let them know that I was documenting everything, and that their employee was currently fleeing the state with stolen funds. The weather in Boston that day remained beautiful, almost mockingly so. The sun was shining. People were walking their dogs, jogging along the Charles River, going about their normal lives while mine was imploding. But I didn't feel like I was imploding. I felt like I was taking control for the first time in years. Every action I took was calculated, strategic, and completely legal. By that evening, I had filed for divorce, filed a police report about the theft, frozen all joint accounts and credit cards, and changed the locks on our apartment. The apartment, by the way, was in both our names, but I had paid 70% of the down payment from my own savings before we got married. I had the documentation to prove it. I also discovered something interesting when I checked our credit card statements that afternoon. Marcus had been spending thousands of dollars over the past 6 months on his girlfriend Brittany. Expensive dinners, hotel rooms, jewelry, trips to Florida to apparently set up their new life together. All charged to our joint credit card, all documented, all evidence of his affair and financial misconduct. If you're invested in finding out what happened when Marcus realized what I'd done, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. We're so close to hitting 1,000 subscribers, and every single subscription helps us reach that goal. Just click that subscribe button. It takes 2 seconds, and you'll be part of this journey. Plus, you won't miss any updates or new stories. Marcus called me that night, around 11 p.m. Boston time, 8 p.m. Florida time. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. His voice was panicked, angry, desperate. He started yelling immediately, asking why I had frozen the credit cards, why I had changed the locks, why his company had called him in for an emergency meeting. I let him rant for a minute. Then I spoke in the same calm voice I had used in my text message that morning. "Marcus," I said, "you ended our 12-year marriage with a text message. You stole $47,000 from our account. You insulted me and mocked me. Did you really think I would just accept that and move on? Did you think I was that weak, that stupid, that helpless?" He sputtered, trying to justify himself, saying he deserved that money, that he had earned it, that I had never appreciated him. I almost laughed. "You have no idea what you've done," I told him. "You have no idea what's coming. You wanted your freedom? You have it. But freedom comes with consequences." Then I hung up. I blocked his number, blocked him on all social media, blocked every possible way he could contact me. From that point forward, all communication would go through my lawyer. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't break down. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on my balcony, and looked out at the Boston skyline. The city lights sparkled in the darkness, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Free. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, paperwork, and discovery. Patricia was absolutely ruthless in her representation of me. She subpoenaed all of Marcus's financial records, phone records, and employment documents. We discovered that he had not only been having an affair with Brittany, but had been embezzling small amounts of money from our joint account for months, funneling it into a separate account he thought I didn't know about. We also discovered that he had lied to his company about several business expenses, claiming personal trips with Brittany as work-related travel. His employer was not pleased. In Massachusetts, we have equitable distribution laws for divorce, which means assets are divided fairly, but not necessarily equally. Given that Marcus had committed theft, adultery, and financial misconduct, and given that I had clear documentation of my separate assets and my larger contributions to our marital property, Patricia was confident we could get a very favorable settlement for me. She filed a motion for temporary spousal support, requesting that Marcus pay me $3,000 a month until the divorce was finalized. She also filed a motion for him to return the $47,000 he had stolen, plus interest and penalties. Marcus tried to fight it. He hired a cheap lawyer in Florida who clearly didn't understand Massachusetts law and didn't have access to all the evidence we had compiled. His lawyer sent threatening letters, accused me of hiding assets, tried to claim that I had abandoned the marriage. But we had that text message, that beautiful, damning text message, where Marcus explicitly stated he was leaving me, taking my money, and moving to Florida with his girlfriend. Every argument his lawyer made fell apart in the face of that evidence. The autumn in Boston turned to winter, and I watched the city transform from gold and orange to white and crystalline. I threw myself into my work, earning a promotion and a significant raise. My colleagues and friends rallied around me, offering support and encouragement. My sister Emma, who lived in Cambridge, became my rock during this time, coming over several nights a week with takeout and wine, letting me vent or cry or just sit in silence. My parents, who had always liked Marcus, were horrified by what he had done and told me they were proud of how I was handling everything. Meanwhile, Marcus's new life in Florida was apparently not going as planned. Through mutual friends, I heard that Brittany had turned out to be extremely high maintenance and expensive. The $47,000 he had stolen was disappearing fast between her shopping habits, their rent in Miami, and his legal fees. His job situation was also deteriorating. His company had launched an internal investigation into his expense reports and business conduct. While they hadn't fired him yet, they had put him on probation and clawed back some of his commissions. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're building an amazing community here, and we're so close to 1,000 subscribers. Your subscription really does make a difference, and it helps keep stories like this coming. Just click subscribe. It's that simple, and you'll be supporting this channel's growth. By February, 4 months after Marcus had sent that text message, we were deep into the divorce proceedings. Marcus was desperate to settle. His lawyer kept reaching out to Patricia with increasingly frantic offers. They wanted to split everything 50-50, no spousal support, no penalties. Patricia laughed and sent back our counteroffer. I would keep the apartment. Marcus would return the $47,000 plus $20,000 in damages. He would pay my legal fees, and he would pay me $2,000 a month in spousal support for 3 years. Additionally, I would keep all of my separate accounts and retirement funds, and he would keep his smaller retirement account. Marcus tried to refuse, but his lawyer finally explained to him that if we went to trial, he would likely end up owing me even more. A judge would not look kindly on a man who divorced his wife via text message, committed theft, and engaged in documented adultery. Marcus would also risk further action from his employer and potential criminal charges for the theft. Faced with all of this, he had no choice but to accept our terms. The divorce was finalized in March, almost exactly 6 months after that terrible Tuesday morning. I stood in the courthouse in downtown Boston, Patricia by my side, and listened as the judge granted the divorce and approved our settlement agreement. Marcus wasn't even there. He appeared via video conference from Florida, looking tired and defeated. When the judge asked if he understood and agreed to the terms, he mumbled yes. When the judge asked if I understood and agreed, I said yes, clearly and firmly. And just like that, it was over. Walking out of that courthouse into the cold March air, I felt lighter than I had in years. The city was still covered in patches of snow, but you could sense spring coming, that subtle shift in the air that promises renewal and new beginnings. Patricia hugged me and told me she was proud of me, that I had handled everything with grace and strength. I thanked her for being such a fierce advocate. Then I walked to my car, drove back to my apartment now, legally and fully mine, and I sat down and finally cried. Not tears of sadness or regret, but tears of relief and release. The money Marcus was ordered to return came back into my account within 2 weeks. The $67,000 total, $47,000 original amount plus $20,000 in damages, appeared in my personal account, and I immediately transferred it to a high-yield savings account. Combined with my other savings and investments, I now had nearly $500,000 in assets. I was debt-free except for a very manageable mortgage. I had a great job with an excellent salary, and I was single for the first time in over a decade. If you're enjoying this story and want to hear more stories like this one, please subscribe to the channel. We're working hard every day to bring you compelling, real-life stories, and reaching 1,000 subscribers is an important milestone for us. Click that subscribe button and be part of this community. It really helps more than you know. I spent the spring and summer rediscovering who I was outside of my marriage. I took a solo trip to Portugal, something I had always wanted to do, but Marcus had never been interested in. I walked the streets of Lisbon, ate pastéis de nata in small cafes, watched the sunset over the Tagus River, and felt truly at peace. I joined a book club in Boston, started taking yoga classes, reconnected with old friends I had lost touch with during my marriage. I redecorated the apartment, getting rid of anything that reminded me of Marcus, and creating a space that was entirely mine. I painted the walls in warm, rich colors, bought new furniture that reflected my taste, filled the space with plants and art and books. Through mutual friends, I continued to hear updates about Marcus, though I didn't seek this information out. Apparently, his relationship with Brittany had imploded spectacularly by June. She had cheated on him with someone closer to her own age, someone with more money and fewer complications. Marcus had moved into a small, depressing apartment in a not great part of Miami. His job situation had not improved. The company had eventually let him go as part of a restructuring, though everyone knew it was really because of the investigation. He was working in a much lower-paying sales position and struggling to make his spousal support payments to me. Every month, the $2,000 would appear in my account, a reminder of his consequences. I didn't feel vindictive hearing about his struggles. I didn't feel happy or satisfied or victorious. I felt nothing, which was perhaps the biggest indicator of how completely I had moved on. Marcus had become irrelevant to my life, a minor character in a chapter that was now closed. What I did feel was grateful that I had the knowledge and skills to protect myself, grateful for my support system, grateful for the opportunity to rebuild my life on my own terms. By the fall, a year after that devastating text message, my life looked completely different. I had been promoted again at work, now serving as a senior financial analyst with a 6-figure salary. I had started casually dating, nothing serious, just enjoying getting to know new people and figuring out what I actually wanted in a partner. I had discovered that I loved living alone, loved having complete control over my space and my time and my decisions. I had invested some of my settlement money into starting a small side business, offering financial consulting to other women going through divorces, helping them understand their assets and protect themselves. It was incredibly fulfilling work. Please take a moment right now to subscribe to this channel. We're so grateful for every person who clicks that button and joins our community. We're pushing to reach 1,000 subscribers, and your support is what makes that possible. Hit subscribe, and you'll be helping this channel continue to grow and bring you more stories. The apartment in Back Bay where I had received that terrible message was no longer a place of pain. It had become my sanctuary. On quiet evenings, I would sit on that same balcony where I had read Marcus's text, but instead of feeling hurt or betrayed, I would feel proud. Proud of how I had handled everything, proud of the life I was building, proud of the woman I had become through this experience. I ran into Marcus's mother once, in a coffee shop in Brookline. She approached me hesitantly, looking embarrassed and sad. She apologized for her son's behavior, told me she had raised him better than that, and said she was ashamed of what he had done. I appreciated her apology, told her I held no ill will toward her, and we parted cordially. It was a brief interaction, but it gave me a sense of closure I hadn't known I needed. By December, as Boston transformed into a winter wonderland with lights and decorations everywhere, I found myself reflecting on the past year and a half. What Marcus had done to me was cruel, cowardly, and illegal. But in a strange way, that text message had been a gift. It had forced me to advocate for myself, to recognize my own worth, to stop settling for less than I deserved. It had pushed me out of a marriage that had been slowly dying anyway, a relationship where I had been undervalued and taken for granted. It had given me the opportunity to create a life that was entirely my own, built on my own strength and capabilities. I also came to realize something important. Revenge hadn't been my goal. Justice had been. There's a difference. Revenge is about hurting someone because they hurt you, about evening the score in a petty way. Justice is about holding someone accountable for their actions, about ensuring there are consequences for harmful behavior, about protecting yourself and rebuilding. What I did wasn't about making Marcus suffer. It was about making sure I didn't. The Boston winter that year was particularly beautiful, with heavy snowfalls that blanketed the city in white. I would walk through the public garden, watching ice skaters on Frog Pond, and marvel at how different my life was from what I had imagined it would be. But different didn't mean worse. Different meant authentic. Different meant free. Different meant mine. If you've made it this far in the story, thank you for listening. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time. Click that red subscribe button and help us hit 1,000 subscribers. Your support means we can keep sharing stories like this, stories of resilience and strength and survival. Don't forget to subscribe. I heard through friends that Marcus eventually moved back to the Boston area in early spring of the second year, about 18 months after our divorce. Apparently, Florida hadn't worked out for him at all, and he was trying to rebuild his career in the city where he had connections. I never ran into him, and I had no desire to. His monthly support payments continued to arrive like clockwork, probably because Patricia had made it very clear what would happen if he defaulted. Every time I saw that deposit, I would transfer it directly to my investment account, building wealth that would secure my future. I started dating someone seriously in March of that second year, a man named David who was an architect. We met through friends at a dinner party in Somerville. He was kind, creative, and had been through his own difficult divorce several years earlier. We understood each other in ways that felt rare and valuable. David never pressured me, never made me feel like I needed to rush into anything, and respected the life and independence I had built for myself. Our relationship developed slowly, naturally, built on mutual respect and genuine connection. One evening in late spring, David and I were walking along the Charles River, watching the boats and enjoying the warm weather. He asked me about my divorce, something we had touched on before, but never discussed in depth. I told him the story, all of it, from that terrible text message to the legal battle to where I was now. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that struck me deeply. You didn't just survive what happened to you. You transformed it into something powerful. That takes incredible strength. His words stayed with me. He was right. I had survived, yes, but more than that, I had grown. I had learned that I was capable of handling crises with grace and intelligence. I had learned that I didn't need someone else to define my worth or my happiness. I had learned that sometimes the worst moments of our lives are actually doorways to better versions of ourselves, if we're brave enough to walk through them. Before we wrap up this story, I want to remind you one more time to subscribe to this channel. We're building something special here, a community of people who appreciate real stories about real challenges and real triumphs. Help us reach that 1,000 subscriber goal by clicking the subscribe button. It's free, it's easy, and it makes a huge difference. By the summer of the second year after my divorce, I had fully come into my own. I was financially secure, professionally successful, personally fulfilled, and in a healthy relationship with someone who valued me. The apartment I once shared with Marcus had been completely transformed into a space that reflected who I was and who I was becoming. I had traveled to 3 countries, started my consulting business, strengthened my friendships, and rebuilt my relationship with myself. I often thought about that moment on the balcony, reading that cruel text message, feeling my world crumble. If someone had told me then that I would end up here, stronger and happier than I had been in years, I wouldn't have believed them. The pain felt too acute, the betrayal too deep, the future too uncertain. But time, effort, self-respect, and the support of good people had carried me through. I had done the work, taken the actions, made the difficult decisions, and created a life I was genuinely proud of. Marcus's attempt to leave me broken and helpless had backfired completely. Instead of destroying me, his actions had liberated me. Instead of taking everything from me, he had unknowingly given me the push I needed to claim everything for myself. His text message hadn't been the end of my story. It had been the beginning of a much better one. The calm response I had sent him that morning, those 2 simple words, "Good luck," had meant more than he could have understood at the time. I wasn't wishing him well. I was acknowledging that he would need luck, because he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He had underestimated me, dismissed me, and treated me like I was nothing, and in doing so, he had revealed that he was the one who had been nothing all along, nothing but selfish, shallow, and foolish. I never sent Marcus another message after that one. I never called him, never tried to make him understand what he had lost, never attempted to make him feel guilty or regretful. I didn't need to. The consequences of his actions spoke for themselves. Every month when he made that support payment, he was reminded. Every time he struggled financially while I thrived, he was reminded. Every time he heard through mutual friends about my success and happiness, he was reminded. That was enough. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, if it inspired you, if it made you think about strength and resilience in your own life, please subscribe to this channel. We're working toward 1,000 subscribers, and every single one counts. Click that subscribe button, join this community, and help us keep sharing stories that matter. Looking back now, from the perspective of someone who has healed and grown and built a beautiful life, I can say with absolute certainty that I would not change what happened. Yes, it was painful. Yes, it was difficult. Yes, there were moments when I didn't think I would get through it. But those moments taught me who I really was. They showed me I was capable of so much more than I had given myself credit for. They proved that I didn't need Marcus or anyone else to be complete, successful, or happy. The Boston skyline looks different to me now when I stand on my balcony. It's the same buildings, the same streets, the same city I've always known. But I see it through different eyes that have witnessed betrayal and chosen strength, eyes that have seen loss and chosen growth, eyes that have experienced pain and chosen healing. The city didn't change. I did. And that text message, that horrible, cruel, mocking text message that Marcus sent at 6:30 in the morning on a beautiful September day, has become something almost sacred to me. Not because of what it said, but because of what it catalyzed. It was the moment everything changed. It was the moment I stopped being someone who let things happen to her and became someone who made things happen. It was the moment I stopped being Marcus's wife and started being fully, completely, unapologetically myself. So if there's anything I want you to take away from my story, it's this. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. When someone treats you with cruelty and disrespect, recognize it as information about them, not about you. When life forces you into a corner, remember that you have more strength than you know, more resources than you realize, more capacity for survival and growth than you can imagine. And when someone tries to destroy you, use it as fuel to build something better than they ever could have destroyed. Marcus thought he was leaving me with nothing when he sent that text message and took that money. He thought he was winning, but he was wrong. I was the one who won, because I was the one who kept my integrity, my intelligence, my self-respect, and ultimately my happiness. He got his 21-year-old girlfriend and his Florida apartment and his empty bank account. I got myself back, and that was worth more than anything he could have taken from me. Thank you for being here, for listening, for caring about this story. If you found value in it, please subscribe to this channel. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers, and your support makes all the difference. Click subscribe, and let's continue this journey together. I continued building my life with intention and purpose throughout that second year after the divorce. The consulting business I had started for women going through divorces began to really take off in ways I hadn't anticipated. What started as a side project, something I did a few evenings a week to help others navigate the financial complexities of divorce, turned into something much more significant. By late summer, I had helped over 30 women understand their assets, protect their interests, and negotiate fair settlements. The gratitude these women expressed, the relief in their voices when they realized they weren't helpless, that they had options and resources they hadn't known about, filled me with a sense of purpose I had never experienced in my corporate job. One client in particular, a woman named Jennifer from Newton, reminded me so much of myself 2 years earlier. She came to me in tears, explaining that her husband had drained their accounts and was threatening to leave her with nothing. She was terrified, convinced she would end up homeless and destitute. I sat with her in my home office, the same apartment where I had received Marcus's devastating text. and I walked her through everything step by step. I showed her how to document assets, how to freeze accounts, how to find hidden money, how to build a case that would protect her. 3 months later, Jennifer called me to say she had gotten a settlement that secured her future and her children's futures. She told me I had saved her life. I told her she had saved her own life. I had just shown her the tools. David and I grew closer throughout that summer and fall. He understood my need for independence and never tried to rush me into anything I wasn't ready for. We spent weekends exploring different neighborhoods in Boston, trying new restaurants, attending concerts and art exhibitions. He introduced me to his circle of friends, creative and interesting people who welcomed me warmly. I introduced him to my sister Emma and my close friends, and they all approved, which mattered to me more than I had expected. What I appreciated most about David was that he saw me as a complete person, not as someone who needed to be fixed or saved. He celebrated my successes, supported my business ventures, and gave me space when I needed it. By October of that second year, my consulting business had grown enough that I was considering leaving my corporate job to do it full-time. The idea terrified and excited me in equal measure. I had worked in corporate finance for over 15 years, and the security and stability of that career had always been important to me. But I was making almost as much from my consulting work as I was from my corporate salary, and the fulfillment I got from helping other women was incomparable. I discussed it extensively with David, with my sister, with my financial advisor. Everyone encouraged me to take the leap, reminding me that I had substantial savings and could always return to corporate work if the business didn't work out. In November, I gave my notice at the investment firm. My colleagues were supportive, if surprised. They threw me a farewell party, and several people told me they admired my courage to pursue something I was passionate about. My boss, a pragmatic man named Richard, who had always valued my work, told me he thought I was making a smart move and that I had the skills and drive to succeed at anything I set my mind to. Walking out of that office for the last time felt surreal, like closing one more door on my old life and opening a window to something entirely new. I want to take a moment here to thank everyone who has subscribed to this channel so far. We're getting closer to that 1,000 subscriber milestone every single day, and it's because of listeners like you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. Click that subscribe button and be part of this growing community. Your support truly matters. I rebranded my consulting business in December, hiring a graphic designer to create a professional logo and website. I called it Clarity Financial Consulting, because that's what I offered women going through divorce. Clarity in a time of chaos and confusion. I rented a small office space in Cambridge, a bright room with large windows overlooking Massachusetts Avenue. I furnished it simply but professionally, with comfortable chairs for clients and a large desk where I could spread out documents and really dig into cases. I invested in advertising, both online and in local women's magazines. I joined networking groups and started speaking at events about financial planning during divorce. The business grew rapidly in the new year. By February, I was fully booked with clients, sometimes seeing 5 or 6 women per week. Each story was different, but there were common threads: partners who had controlled the finances, hidden assets, underestimated their spouse's intelligence, or simply assumed that being the primary breadwinner entitled them to everything. I helped these women find accounts they didn't know existed, uncover spending patterns that proved affairs or financial misconduct, understand their rights under Massachusetts law, and negotiate settlements that gave them security and dignity. Some cases were straightforward. Others required months of investigation and documentation. I loved all of it. One morning in March, almost exactly 2 years after my divorce was finalized, I was working in my office when I received an unexpected email. It was from Marcus. The subject line read, "I need to talk to you." And despite my better judgment, I opened it. The message was long, rambling, and clearly written in a state of emotional distress. He apologized for everything he had done, said he had made terrible mistakes, admitted that leaving me was the biggest regret of his life. He said he had been foolish and selfish and blind to what he had. He asked if we could meet to talk, said he wanted to explain himself, maybe even see if there was any chance of reconciliation. I read the email twice, waiting to feel something. Anger, satisfaction, vindication, maybe even a trace of the old hurt, but all I felt was mild pity and complete indifference. The man who had written this email was a stranger to me. The life he was reminiscing about, the marriage he apparently missed, had never really existed in the way he was remembering it. He was lonely and regretful, and looking backwards, while I was fulfilled and forward-focused in building something meaningful. I didn't respond to his email. I simply archived it and moved on with my day. There was nothing to say, nothing to explain, nothing to revisit. That evening, I told David about the email over dinner at a small Italian restaurant in the North End. He asked how I felt about it, and I realized I felt nothing. Marcus had become so irrelevant to my life that even his attempt to reconnect barely registered as significant. David smiled and said that was probably the healthiest possible response. We talked about other things, about a trip we were planning to Montreal, about a new project David was working on, about a challenging client case I was navigating. Marcus's email was a footnote in the conversation, nothing more. Spring arrived in Boston with its usual dramatic beauty, the city bursting into bloom almost overnight. Cherry blossoms in the public garden, tulips along Commonwealth Avenue, the air warm and filled with possibility. I celebrated my 40th birthday that April with a party at my apartment, surrounded by friends, family, and David. My sister Emma gave a toast, talking about how proud she was of me, how I had transformed pain into purpose, and emerged stronger than ever. I looked around the room at all these people who loved and supported me, at the life I had built, and I felt overwhelming gratitude. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you're enjoying this journey. We're building something really special here, and your subscription helps us reach more people with these stories. Click that subscribe button and join us in reaching 1,000 subscribers. It takes just a second, and it means the world. The monthly support payments from Marcus continued to arrive, though I barely noticed them anymore. They were automatically deposited and automatically transferred to my investment account. That money, combined with the settlement he had paid and my own substantial savings, had grown into a portfolio worth over $600,000. I was financially secure in ways I had never been during my marriage, and it was security I had built myself through smart decisions and hard work. My business continued to thrive. By summer, I had hired an assistant, a recent college graduate named Maya, who was studying for the CPA exam. She helped with administrative tasks, client scheduling, and basic financial analysis. Having help allowed me to take on more clients and expand my services. I started offering workshops on financial literacy for women, teaching groups of 20 or 30 women at a time about managing money, understanding investments, protecting assets, and planning for the future. These workshops were incredibly popular, and they gave me a platform to help even more women than I could reach through individual consulting. I also started writing articles about financial planning and divorce for various online publications. My perspective, combining professional financial expertise with personal experience, resonated with readers. One article I wrote about protecting yourself financially in a marriage went viral, getting shared thousands of times on social media. I started receiving emails from women all over the country asking for advice, or thanking me for giving them the courage to take control of their financial situations. It was humbling and inspiring to realize that my story, my pain, and subsequent growth could help so many others. David and I talked about moving in together that summer. We had been dating for over a year and spent most nights at one apartment or the other anyway. But I surprised myself by hesitating. I loved David, genuinely and deeply, but I also loved my independence. The apartment that had once been mine and Marcus's, that I had reclaimed and transformed, had become my sanctuary. The idea of giving that up, even for someone I cared about, made me anxious. David, being the understanding person he was, didn't push. He said we could continue as we were for as long as I needed, that there was no rush, that my comfort and happiness were what mattered most. That conversation made me realize something important about my growth over the past few years. I had learned that I didn't need to compromise myself or my needs to maintain a relationship. I had learned that a good partner would respect my boundaries and my journey. I had learned that love didn't mean losing yourself. It meant finding someone who celebrated who you were and who you were becoming. Marcus had made me feel small, dependent, less than. David made me feel valued, supported, empowered. That difference was everything. In August, I received another unexpected contact. This time a phone call from Patricia, my divorce lawyer. She told me that Marcus had filed for bankruptcy. Apparently, his financial situation had deteriorated significantly, and he was drowning in debt. He was petitioning the court to reduce or eliminate his spousal support obligation to me. Patricia said we would fight it, that the support was part of our divorce decree and couldn't be easily modified, but she wanted me to be prepared for the possibility of a court hearing. Honestly, the news didn't bother me much. I didn't need Marcus's support payments anymore. My business was generating more than enough income, and my investments were performing well. If the court reduced his obligation, it would be fine. What did bother me, slightly, was the principle of it. Marcus had stolen from me, betrayed me, mocked me, and now he wanted to be released from the consequences of his actions. But I also recognized that holding on to resentment would only hurt me, not him. I told Patricia to do whatever she thought was legally appropriate, but that I wasn't going to invest emotional energy into fighting this battle. The hearing was scheduled for October. I attended, mostly out of curiosity. Marcus was there, looking significantly older and more worn than I remembered. His cheap suit hung on a frame that had lost weight, and there were shadows under his eyes that spoke of stress and sleepless nights. He avoided looking at me during the proceedings. His lawyer argued that his bankruptcy and reduced income made it impossible for him to continue the support payments. Patricia argued that his financial situation was the result of his own poor decisions and that the original agreement should stand. The judge listened to both sides, reviewed the documentation, and ultimately ruled in my favor, saying that Marcus had entered into the agreement voluntarily and that his current hardship didn't justify modification. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't expected. This was likely the last time I would ever see Marcus, the last legal proceeding connecting us. As I reached my car, I heard him call my name. I turned to see him standing a few feet away, looking defeated and desperate. He asked if we could talk, just for a minute. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Please remember to hit that subscribe button. We're so close to our goal of 1,000 subscribers, and every new subscription helps this channel grow and continue sharing these powerful stories. Click subscribe right now and be part of this community. Marcus started talking quickly, nervously, saying how sorry he was, how he had ruined everything, how he wished he could go back and change his decisions. He said Brittany had been a mistake, that moving to Florida had been a mistake, that leaving me had been the biggest mistake of his life. He looked at me with something like hope in his eyes, as if his apology might somehow change things, might open a door back to what we had. I let him finish. Then I spoke calmly and clearly. Marcus, I said, I appreciate the apology, but it doesn't change anything. What you did to me was cruel and cowardly, and it forced me to rebuild my entire life. But here's the thing. I'm grateful for it. Because the life I've built without you is better than anything we ever had together. I'm happier, more successful, more fulfilled, and more myself than I ever was during our marriage. You didn't break me. You freed me. So thank you, I guess, for being exactly who you were. It showed me who I needed to become. He looked stunned, like he had expected tears or anger or lingering attachment, not this calm declaration of independence and growth. I walked to my car, drove away, and never looked back. That conversation, brief as it was, felt like the final chapter of a book I had finished long ago. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to resolve, nothing left to feel. I was done. The rest of that year passed in a blur of work, growth, and happiness. My business continued to expand. I hired a second assistant and started planning to write a book about financial planning for women in transition, whether through divorce, widowhood, or career change. David and I celebrated our relationship without needing to define it by traditional markers like cohabitation or marriage. We were happy as we were, committed to each other, but also committed to our own individual growth and independence. My family remained a constant source of support and love. My friendships deepened and multiplied. By the time the third anniversary of that terrible text message arrived in September, I barely remembered the exact date until my sister reminded me. 3 years since Marcus had tried to destroy me with his cruelty and theft. 3 years since I had responded with calm strength and strategic action. 3 years since my real life had begun. I marked the occasion quietly, treating myself to a nice dinner and reflecting on how far I had come. The woman who had received that text message seemed like a different person now, someone I could barely recognize. She had been insecure, dependent, willing to overlook red flags to maintain a marriage that wasn't serving her. The woman I had become was confident, independent, clear-eyed about what she wanted and deserved. The transformation hadn't been easy or quick, but it had been profound and permanent. Thank you for staying with this story all the way through. If it moved you or inspired you in any way, please click that subscribe button. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers and continue building this community of people who believe in resilience, growth, and the power of choosing yourself. Subscribe now and be part of this journey with us.